Guys of Reddit who have rejected someone. What's the worst way someone has taken it? Story 1. Was in New York Fleet Week, in my dress whites with my group, waiting to cross the street. Runk girl comes up to me, grabs me, and says she's always wanted to be with a sailor. I gently stiff-arm and let her know I'm happily married, but point out my young single shipmate in the group. But I want you. Her friends have arrived by this point. She told them I was being mean because I said no and started crying. The friends confronted me. It's her birthday, though. Your wife isn't even here. Just be nice. Story 2. My ex-wife started acting real shady, sneaking out of the house to make phone calls, hiding incoming calls, and not telling who was calling in the middle of date night. She was also a mean drunk and had started drinking to excess every night. Then the physical violence started, throwing shit at my head, including a large rock, kicking and punching when she got angry. This is where I drew the line. One night, she went off the rails again in front of her small children, and I just knew that I could no longer live like that. I had just returned home from a week-long business trip and hadn't unpacked my bags yet, so I grabbed those, took one last look at my nice home and my family, and left. As I walked out, knew full well that all of the things I didn't grab were probably gone for good. But I needed to be as well, or I would either end up in jail or dead. She blew my phone up for the next couple of weeks, at least 60 text messages a day on the work cell. All hate-filled and incredibly vile. I tried to call her a couple of times when off of work to talk about how we could best separate our finances and things and try to move on amicably. But she would just scream and accuse me of cheating because that was the only logical reason why I'd left. Cheaters all do this, by the way. The last time we talked before the divorce, she threatened to file a false police report for harming her 4-year-old son. She didn't specify whether the allegation would be physical or sexual in nature. That didn't matter to me. Neither happened, and either one would end my career and my freedom. I cut off all contact. I tried to get her served with divorce papers only to learn from the process server she had abandoned the home. I went to survey the damage to find almost all of my clothes had been bleached, along with our new living room set. The new dining room table and chairs had been gouged. Weeks' worth of trash and raw food had been left out. The refrigerator had been turned off, leaving hundreds of dollars of food to rot. The whole place smelled like death. She had also taken all of the electronics, probably to hawk, my passport with stamps in it from around the world, and the painting I had inherited from my beloved grandfather who had passed away. She knew this would hurt me the most. All said and done, $7,000 in property damage and another $1,500 in stolen property. I filed a police report for insurance reasons and also for a restraining order. Because my ex had obviously gone batshit and was capable of anything, the police, of course, didn't give two shits. Not surprisingly, because vagina. Story 3. I once went on an internet double date. My friend had been internet dating this woman for a while and needed a driver to go meet her for the first time. To help convince me to drive, they arranged for one of her friends to come with me. When we got to the meetup spot, a few cities over, the friend wasn't there, stuck at work. So I was forced to play third wheel, watching my friend and his girlfriend profess their love and make out. Needless to say, when my friend finally showed up, I was overjoyed. She misinterpreted my thank God, someone to talk to reaction for a, oh my God, love at first sight reaction. She got way intense way quick, so I eventually let her down as easily as I could. For months afterwards, I'd get multiple emails and phone calls a day, with the craziest example being an email with our names together forever. I love you typed out once for every day since we'd met. She also, apparently, went to my work once. But luckily, I wasn't there at the time. I was on the verge of calling the cops after that stunt. Eventually, my complete lack of responses to her communication, and after blocking several of her email addresses, it tapered off. But I'd still get random phone calls and emails from her, even years after this all happened. Story 4. The girl who I saw just as a friend and had never flirted with started dropping really obvious "I'm in love with you" things in texts. I can't wait to go on a date with you. I can't wait to kiss you, etc. I told her I wasn't interested that way. She kept pushing until I told her I was dating someone. I wasn't, and she sent me a really angry text message and disappeared. She started dating someone and got engaged, so thought I was home and free, until she messaged me the night before her wedding. Basically, she said she just started dating the other guy to make me realize how much I loved her and wanted me to save her from a marriage to this awful man. I told her no. Then she said that she just swallowed a bottle of pills and wouldn't go to the hospital unless it was on the way to Vegas to elope. I called a mutual friend and told them what had happened and proceeded to block the crazy girl on everything. Turns out she hadn't actually swallowed a bottle of pills. Wasn't being crazy. Story 5. I dated a girl for a week when I realized she just wasn't my type and I wasn't hers. So I told her we would go our ways. Her way, however, was to stalk me for 3 fucking years because we were meant to be together for life. Highlights were making fake internet accounts of other girls I dated in those 3 years and knowing frightening much about me and these girls while writing me, impersonating them, calling every day when I changed numbers. She called every other person in my life she had the number of, trying to date people I know, making weird collages of me and her on Facebook, making up fake stories of her and me and many, many more. Thank God it became less and less after long and exhausting talks had with her to make her stop on and on again. Didn't hear from her since 2015. Story 6. This was a bit of a double-edged sword, but 2 girls in college, different times. The first one had a crush on me and her ex, and I helped her through everything, was not opposed to sex, but never pushed for it. She made it her goal to make me feel as jealous as possible around other guys. Maybe a year later, she finally asks me over to spend the night with her. I was a little baked. And after the weird sex, she passed out and started snoring. I felt weird as fuck lying in bed stoned and awake, so I decided to leave. The next day, she texts me super angrily, as expected, and ignores me for a few weeks. Maybe a month later, she posts a picture of an ultrasound and tags me in it. Messaged me back a few hours later saying it was a joke and her mom called her crying. That's why she told me. The second girl had BPD, but was calm and interesting enough to pursue. She asked me to go to clubs and bars with her and then made out with other guys while there, even though she said we were kind of dating. Whenever she wanted away from a particular guy, she would come find me and start making out with me. I still gave her the benefit of the doubt for 2 months, until she straight up made me catch her with her ex. These are 2 girls who both wanted to date me and made elaborate schemes to exact some sort of revenge on me. I've stayed away from those types for years now. Story 7. Rejected a girl I barely knew who then started screaming she was going to kill herself if we weren't together. I felt bad for her, but pro tip for you ladies who think this is a winning strategy, it kinda makes people want to date you less. She proceeds to get on the ground and writhe around saying she's having a panic attack and she could die from it. I almost laugh at how fake it all is. I mean, she gently sits down during her fall, and then positions herself carefully and then stops moving. But a group of people come by and rescue her. We were outside a campus. She goes to hospital and obviously the doctors find there's nothing wrong with her. But she claims they just couldn't spot it. Starts spreading the word on how she nearly died from the cruel abuse I threw at her and how when she was dying in the streets from a severe panic attack, I just cruelly laughed and walked away. Don't think a lot of people bought her story. But I never really saw her again, so it just kind of disappeared on its own. Story 8. When I was in high school, a girl I had started hanging out with was texting and asked me out over text. I was trying to think of the best way to let her down, and she was getting impatient. So I basically told her that I liked being friends and I don't want to be anything more than that, and that I don't want to date while I'm in high school because between school, work, and my MA classes, I didn't have a lot of time for dating, plus I lived out of town and didn't have a car. She sent me a text that just said no and wouldn't respond. After that, she stalked me for a while and tried to make me jealous, even going as far as getting herself pregnant. Another girl I had turned down didn't react quite as badly. I was doing headshots for her in our school's photography studio to add to her modeling portfolio, and sometimes during photo shoot, things can become a little intimate when you have to physically pose them. It's only move them like a mannequin to get the exact pose you want. And after a month of us talking and doing photo shoots, she asked me out, but I declined, and she just walked away out of the studio not saying anything. She started dating a guy immediately after that and asked how it made me feel. But when I said I was happy for her, she flipped out and, after that, would purposefully get super flirty with me anytime she saw me talking to a girl trying to ruin any potential romance and getting really aggressive with any girl she thought I had a thing with. There have been a few since, but the stories aren't interesting to justify adding to a long post, but basically one tried telling people I raped her. Another became a cam girl and has finally stopped cyberstalking me after 4 years. And the last one came after me with a knife. Story 9. So originally my ex-girlfriend broke up with me. She was 25 at the time. I said, okay, cool, I'll move out at the end of finals, about 2 weeks. She left for a few days to hang out with friends. I decided to move all my stuff out while she was gone except some clothes, my bed, and laptop. She comes back, notices everything of mine is gone, and starts flipping out because I'm moving out, though she wanted me out. She probably wanted me to beg to stay together, LOLL. She kicks the trash can, screams a bit, cries, starts pouting and stomping around the room, then lays on the floor, pounding her hands and feet into the ground like a child. It's exactly how it sounds. I, of course, start laughing because I don't know what is going on, and this is ridiculous. I finally had to step in when she started trying to stab her leg with pencils. Eventually, I find a place and move out. She would call me and talk a bit, then start yelling or getting upset. I would warn her that if she can't talk like an adult, I will hang up on her. She hated that. Of course, she didn't stop. So click. She calls back and I'd answer like nothing happened, and she'll start yelling, "Don't hang up on me." Then I hung up on her again. Well, this would go on for a bit before I got bored and stopped answering. Eventually, this happened again where she would call, and I would end up hanging up on her. She called again and told me she was coming over. Now, I never told her where my new place was, but she knew the general area. I quickly park my car in the garage and go back to playing video games. She calls me and tells me she is outside and I should come out. Luckily, she was down the road at some other house. I tell her she's crazy and needs to seek professional help. So what does she do, you ask? She decides to push her car horn for a good 15 minutes at 10 in a residential neighborhood, all the while telling me in a frustrated child-like voice that I need to come outside. Of course, I'm not going to do that and tell her to go home. At some point, she realizes this is going nowhere, goes home, then calls me and tells me she just took a ton of pills and to come over or she'll die. I tell her I'm going to call the cops, and realizing that she would lose her job, works with kids, agrees to puking the pills out. To see a grown-ass adult literally throw a temper tantrum with flailing limbs was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Story 10. One spread rumors at my work that I was gay because I wouldn't sleep with her back when I was still married. Another found my mother online and left her a colorful message on her Facebook page saying what a piece of shit she was for raising such a piece of shit like me. The latest one spent every conversation we had trying to convince me that it wouldn't work. When I finally agreed with her, she told me that I'm not trying hard enough and I'm just throwing her away.